Hey everybody, welcome to G4G on YouTube. Today we're going to have a little bit of a discussion video. Not going to be that much in the way of graphics or entertainment or video, probably a little more podcasty from me. But it's a general topic that I like to talk about on the channel, and it tends to be a little near and dear to my heart. So if you haven't followed the channel for a super long time, you probably don't know that when I was going to college, I was going for a degree in communication. Specifically, I was looking at PR. But to get there, you go through all kinds of courses on nonverbal communication, persuasion, things like that. I've always kind of been a student of the psychology of communication and psychology in general, and tend to value proper communication in all of its forms, in a lot of ways almost above everything else, because it represents who you are. If you are communicating truthfully and properly from your heart and your mind, that is everybody's window into you. And even though I wound up in the IT industry, it literally was just one or two sentences said by family and a former boss that kind of changed my career from being communications based to being IT. But I very, very easily could have been in a communication job. And one of my favorite things when I was doing my public relations classes and coursework were things called case studies. And they were things like the cyanide situation in Tylenol, a Delta plane crash, a local poultry company by the name of Wampler Longacre fighting off a buyout of Tyson if their stocks went low. So the glass in Pepsi that was happening, and the fact that my joke at the time, well before the PR, was like, hey, everybody, let's just drink Crystal Pepsi. You'll see if there's glass in there. And you're probably going to be like, wow, he just dated himself. But hey, that's fine. I don't care. And Crystal Pepsi even sort of made a bit of a comeback, so maybe I just mean the second one. Anyway, a lot of times on the channel, I cover gaming news when it relates to communication. I don't immediately jump on a bandwagon when we say, oh, hey, this game is shit, like Fallout 76. Yeah, the game was a turd, but I don't own it, so there's only so much of a video I can do on it. This topic, though, with what's going on with Apex Legends, is a bit different. It strikes at the core of me because it's communication-based. That's what's going on here. So if you're not familiar with the issue that's going on, Apex Legends is a battle royale game that is produced by Respawn and being published under EA. So Respawn, if it sounds familiar, they're the very good dev house that produced Titanfall 1 and 2. And much like Visceral Games, was brought under the umbrella of EA, but unfortunately, Visceral died. So that means that we will never get another Dead Space game, which is a crying shame, because I was a huge fan of the Dead Space series. Even number 3, and 3 was looking weird prior to it coming out. Everybody's like, oh, I don't know, I think it's too actiony, and it might not be horror enough. And I still played it, and I liked it. I didn't like the fact that some things were gated behind forced multiplayer. There was transactions in that game for sure. I participated in some of them, but I liked the series too much. And the same thing is true for Borderlands. Now, Borderlands 3, that one's currently under protest because a lot of things that Randy Pitchford's been saying, the attack on the YouTuber who supposedly leaked information in an improper way, but it's been shown that it was Twitch's thumbnails that caused that. But he's gotten something like 72 DMCA strikes or even more. That is another public relations issue. That is a PR nightmare for Borderlands 3, which is due out in September, and it's a shame to see that. I mean, I'm still going to get that game because I'm extremely faithful to the series, minus Tales from the Borderlands, but hell, I even had Borderlands Tap on a phone back when Borderlands 2 was a thing. But, so Apex Legends, what's going on over here is, like I said, it's a Battle Royale game that blew up when it dropped. This dropped in the height of Anthem being an absolute clown fiesta. I mean, it's insulting to call Anthem a clown fiesta. Like, clowns are legitimately insulted by that because it was so bad. But the Apex Legends kind of just sneaks under the door a little bit. Like when you were in college and somebody down the hall was smoking pot or something like that, just kind of eked under the door, and everybody went, whoa, wait a minute, what's this? And it carved a really good niche in the Battle Royale sphere. I mean, if you notice, a lot of things out there in the world, a lot of markets tend to just maintain two big winners. Think, once you get past Coke and Pepsi, what is the next cola? And I don't mean like a ginger ale or a Sprite or a Dr. Pepper. An actual, what's the next cola product that your mind goes to? You're going to have to struggle for that for a little bit. You're going to have some Jeopardy theme there. It's like Pepsi, Coke, and then a huge drop off. Now, being a former New Yorker and now in the South, I was always told the big Southern thing is Moon Pies and RC Cola. And, you know, so RC Cola will spring to my mind because every now and then I kind of get a hankering for RC and we'll go out and get a bottle of it. But yeah, it's Coke and Pepsi. And if you think of MOBAs, what was it? It was Dota and it was League of Legends. And then Heroes of the Storm sort of carved out its own little side niche there of like the beginner MOBA. And I'm not disparaging Heroes of the Storm. I love it. I still play it today. Not as much daily as I used to. It's Overwatch and WoW in that slot, but several times a week. So when it came to Battle Royales, you had PUBG and you had Fortnite, and then Fortnite kind of took over where PUBG was. Epic had a failed, well, they had a failed MOBA in Paragon, but those were the two big ones. And then here comes Apex Legends, kind of sneaking under the door, and everybody was like, well, wait a minute, this game is cool. And it was because of Respawn. It was because it was the people who did the Titanfall series. And I'll tell you, as a classic UT player, having done UT 99, 2K3, 2K4, been competitive on ladders, admin on ladders, was on Proving Grounds, was on Team Warfare, was on IGL, was on a small site dedicated to competition in 2K3 CTF. Not a lot of sites always covered 2K3 because it was this redheaded middle child in between the good 2K4, the good 99. 2K3 was like Vista in the group. It was like Windows Millennium to a certain degree. So when it came to Titanfall, unlike many other games since then, I saw some classic UTers coming out of the woodwork and playing it because it had great movement. And no other game out of the UT realm of FPSs, aside from Quake, really had that good movement. Even nowadays, when it comes to Overwatch, I have a lot of former UT playing friends who play Overwatch, but I don't run into random people that I remember and remember me. I actually ran into a fan of the channel in Overwatch. He's like, dude, are you the Napalm that does Marvel Avengers Alliance videos? I'm like, yeah, that's random. But I don't run into random old UTers doing it. But I did in the Titanfall game. Certainly Titanfall 1. And Apex Legends drops. It brings that movement. It doesn't bring the mechs, but it brings that movement back. And it was a real sleeper hit. And it made gobs of money for Respawn under EA. Well, just recently, they had that Iron Crown event going on in Apex Legends. And the big thing that was the problem is that you, in order to get the Raven's Bite axe, which was the final end piece of the whole Iron Crown event, you had to go and get 24 epics and legendaries, and then after you collect the 24, you are not given the axe. Like, say you take World of Warcraft and you do Pathfinder 1 and 2. You now have flying. You have earned the ability to fly in Battle for Azeroth. You didn't earn the ability to buy the right to fly in Battle for Azeroth. You just simply earned it. Well, that wasn't true of the axe. When you got all 24, you still had to purchase the axe with Apex Legends credits. Now, the 24 items had dupe protection, which admittedly is cool. You know, what Blizzard has done in a lot of their things, Hearthstone, and they did this in Legion with artifacts, is they had pity protection, pity party. If you went a long time without getting something good, your percentages went up. This wasn't a hidden thing. They've always fully admitted this. It's bad luck timers. And, you know, then you get something good, a legendary, a good card in Hearthstone, and then you dip back down a little bit. It's a heartbeat. It's a swell. You go up, you go down. You go up, you go down. But your randomness is still at a base. It's just the game's like, you know what? We're taking pity on you. Shit's not happening your way. So, yeah, here's a little boost. Well, what Apex did is they said every time you open one of these packs, you will get something new. There are no duplicates. And as anybody who does Overwatch cosmetics knows, that's a complete... that's a lovely thing to not get it. Because at this point now in Overwatch, I just basically get dupes. But the good thing is I can then take that dupe money, which becomes credits, and buy something I want, unless it's a timed event. Well, what goes on with Apex Legends is that 2 of them were available through challenges during the event, but the other 22 had to be purchased. So the community did the math and realized it's somewhere between $169 and $180 to get everything. And then you still had to have the money to buy the axe. I think it was 3,500 credits. And that translates into about another $35. So you didn't get all the way up there and then get handed the axe like, great work, you did this huge thing. You still had to buy it. And everybody called them out on their ridiculous bullshit. Well, this is where things get really bad for Respawn and not EA. Respawn, that people generally like, have a good impression of, don't really, not like EA or Bethesda. This is a studio that people have positive things to say about, just flushed it. Absolutely flushed it. And the reason being is 2 of the devs have taken to Reddit and really salted the wounds of the community when it came to this Iron Crown event. And they, especially DKO5 that you'll see on the screen over here, this is what his Reddit posts have been. He just basically comes out and says, I remember a time when the community, when gamers didn't act like entitled asshats. And he also refers to the free-to-play players in Apex Legends as freeloaders. Parentheses, but we love that. It's funny, there were 2 devs who used that parentheses, but we love that, frequently here on Reddit, and it sounds very Trump-ish to a certain degree. It's like, I had a rally in out on Long Island, New York, a place that I love. It's just very odd grammar and sentence structure to see that, and it sounds in a lot of ways disingenuous. But what DKO said was just basically, actually here it is. We've said it before, but we will not engage with temper tantrums, personal attacks, or vitriolic threats, as they're completely unacceptable. True. I can't imagine what it is to produce a product, good or bad, and then get death threats over it. And that is 100% unacceptable. I mean, death threats are just, I'm sorry to use the word, but it's retarded. It literally is just baseless stupidity to say that you made this event, you should die. Like, it's just ridiculous. But at the same, but more on that in a little bit. We took a look in the mirror this week. Lol, thanks for the attacks, guys. Again, there's that parenthesis stuff that just sounds smarmy and shitty and sarcastic. And decided we hadn't met the obligations and we're making changes because we believe in our approach. P.S. The changes were a hot turd. They did nothing to help the community here. Something that would have helped is granting the axe at the end for getting all 24 for free. Like what an... Okay, picture you're 9 years old and you're in your community soccer league and your team came in first and you have that pizza party at Chuck E. Cheese or your favorite pizza joint at the end of the season, and Coach Thompson goes to hand you that big-ass trophy that is about half as tall as you with the soccer player on top and the 3 pillars etched in wood, and as he's about ready to hand it to you, he jerks it back and says, that'll be $10. And you look at your dad with tears in your eyes, and you're like, I can't get this trophy, and you're from a broke-ass Kenny South Park family, and you can't pay for that trophy, and you go home crying that you don't have the trophy because you don't have $10 to pay for it. That's what this is. To get all the way there and then have to pay more, what they should do is they should have made it so they handed you the axe, or somehow recoded the end of it all. Well, no, that wouldn't make the community happy. I'd say they could recode it to make half of the epics through game challenges and everything, but then all the people who paid for it would get shitty. So no, that's a rabbit hole. World of Warcraft used to do that kind of stuff, and the elitists would be like, oh, we got it when you had to, and like everything was hard. We got a pre-nerf, like these noobs get it post-nerf. Who cares? Like, we all share in the thing now. But anyway, there probably wasn't that many easy ways out of it, but giving somebody the axe for free at the end and then maybe refunding credits spent to buy the axe for the people who did, that would have made things good. No, they did a rotation. They did a rotation of the legendaries and the epics and blah, blah, blah. So on to the rest of what he said, and this is where things get super bad. I've been in the industry long enough to remember when players weren't complete asshats to developers, and it was pretty neat. I forged a bunch of long-lasting relationships from back then. Would be awesome to get back there and not engaging with toxic people or asking how high when the mob screams jump. Hopefully is a start. And then later on, he's like, he replied to somebody, he's like, I found the dick. This is what I was talking about. A lot of times developers and game journalists who support game companies and not the truth, the reality of the situation, will tell you gamers are entitled. I'm going to flip the script here, and I want you guys to consider something. It's not the gamers who are entitled because we yell and kick and scream when something is bad, like predatory loot boxes and gambling, or having to spend $35 to further complete your thing that you spent about $180 on. The people who aren't entitled are actually these devs. And you're going to be like, whoa, 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 what? No, I get what they're saying, gamers entitled. We're a bitchy, toxic bunch. No, I want you to think about something a little bit here. These devs, like DKO5 over here, his first name is Drew, he is the entitled one, and I want to tell you how. I want you to think about this. He's entitled because he can come to Reddit and represent Respawn and EA by proxy. He represents everything behind him, and he can get away with saying the shit that he said on Reddit and still have a job. That's entitled, because there are no repercussions for what he has said. That's entitlement. That is entitled to protection of your job. Nobody can say the things that he said on Reddit as a representative of his company and bear the full weight of Respawn and EA behind him. Nobody would be able to say these things from their own jobs in real life. I can't say to somebody at my job, you know, I remember when people appreciated whatever random IT thing I do for them. You know, I remember when people appreciated that, and nowadays everybody's just shitty. Like, if somebody, like if one of my bosses or something heard that, I, I'd be written up at least, and probably out the door so fast your head wouldn't stop spinning. And case in point, this shitty little Miss Jessica Price back in 2018, who on her personal Twitter, where she did act as a representative of ArenaNet and Guild Wars 2, she made a several post iteration of how to do the narrative in MMOs and how it differs from RPGs, because you have to consider more like player agency in it, where an RPG could just shove it at you. An MMO has differences and choices and whatever. And a huge fan of the Guild Wars games, and her actually too, said, you know, but I want to talk to you about this, but I kind of beg to differ, and blah blah blah. And he went on a completely rational and normal post over there without being offensive. And she's like, oh look, some rando internet asshat. I don't know what it is with asshat and devs. It's like, it's in your orientation book. Like, you go and you sign your contract, and it's like, by the way, anybody you don't like is an asshat. The way for like Trump, anybody you don't like is fake news. Like, maybe I'll ask my girlfriend about this, since she is a coder by nature. But and I have friends in the guild who code actually for EA down in Florida, so maybe they have to sign that. Like, by the way, asshat. That's what you do. If you're walking into the building and somebody's smoking in the non-smoking area, they're an asshat. They don't like the game, go on Twitter, call them an asshat. So that's what Jessica did. She's like, somebody, oh look, this rando internet asshat is going to mansplain my job to me. Lady, let me tell you something. The moment that you think you are above reproach and you are the best at what you do and nobody is better than you, is the moment you have failed your craft. Everybody has somebody better than them out there. She didn't know if this guy was a Nobel laureate or a master's in English and taught at Oxford. She knew nothing, but immediately went into the ultra-feminist mode of like, I just got mansplained what my job is, like what I get paid to do for a living. So maybe he gets paid more. Maybe he has paperwork that says he's better than you. You don't know that. But she went after him, and she went after several people who supported him, and she had a friend at the company, Peter Fries, who joined in on the protection of her, and guess what? They both got fired. That's something that DKO, Drew, is forgetting about. That her protection ran out. And her entitlement to think that she could say what she wanted on her personal Twitter, acting as an agent or a representative of her company, it backfired. And she took somebody else out with her. Now, I will say this in her defense, though. She was fired for what she said, and in some degrees it was lighter than what Drew was saying. But Drew seemingly still has his job, so maybe she's got a small point there about the patriarchy. That's legitimate. That is something to consider here, but everything that is being said by the Respawn devs here, except for just a few, and this is what we'll talk about here, puts them in serious jeopardy, and they really, it blows my mind. You're not allowed to do this. Like, this is Trump's America, and if you're a Trump fan, I'm sorry, but this is what he does. He's at the highest portion of the United States. He sits atop the United States, literally at the highest throne and power position in the United States of America, and he casts, dispersions down on people and cannot accept criticism, and he says what he wants, and nobody holds him to task if they are a Trumper. If they are a Trump fan, it's the other side that holds him to task. Seemingly, nobody is holding Drew to task here, and you're not supposed to say that from positions of power. If I say this event sucks, I can't believe these people do this, I'm not spending $200 for a fucking axe, this is ridiculous, I have the right to say that in any way I want, because I represent nothing. I represent my own brain and opinion on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit. That's it. But Drew is acting as an agent of everything behind him. So he represents Respawn when he's like, hey, look, internet rando asshats. So that's where they're so wrong, and there really deserves to be some repercussions about it. And it's a shame that a software house like Respawn is doing this, and maybe it just shows you the dirty side of devs to a certain degree. But even the community manager for Apex has Jay Fresh. He's slogged it up in all of this too. But here's this guy Raimi, a Respawn dev. This guy gets it. He deserves some praise. He's like, hey, listen, I get that you don't know anyone from the studio personally. You might think we're evil robots, trained murder pigeons. But if you take away from the last 6 months of Apex's, these diabolical lying money geniuses know exactly what they're doing to extract our soul cash, then oh, buddy. Personal opinion here from just a grunt in the trenches. The last project I was on was a $60 box product, parentheses, that I love. There it is again. It's Jedi mind tricky there. It's very robotic that there's a bunch of people coming out of Respawn that do this. Maybe that's the other thing they need to sign at. But anyway, I assume we were stuck doing that until the heat death of the universe, but then we did Apex. It was so nice to get away with, hey, pay $60 at the door or get the fuck out, nerds. By the way, Remnant from Ashes, $40 at the door. Just saying. $0 to play, no pay to win, cosmetics, battle pass, keep the lights on. Okay, obviously we don't have it to a science yet, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, Drew and Jay are being honest with you, and they're good people. I suggest engaging with them in good faith in those Q&A threads if you have concerns or questions about us. I mean, argue and have your opinions for sure, but conspiracy, personal attack stuff is disheartening. Fine. You have a point, and if you were the first one who came out before the other two idiots started typing away like typewriter cat on steroids, then this wouldn't have been so bad. But dude, DKO has negative 3,000 some odd points for his post that he put up over there. He screwed up, and this can't cover it anymore. Again, if it was first, this would have been okay. And I like some of the replies over here. Who do you think you are, being a rational motherfucker? Love the battle pass, blah, blah, blah. Vote with your wallet. I feel for the devs. I don't understand why people are so upset if it has zero impact in the game. People are so upset because there's history here with this kind of stuff, and it's a shame to see Apex not learning. Here's another theory I want to float to you guys. So Drew is not coming under fire for what he said on Reddit, likely within the company. However, I guarantee you, if they kind of tried to pull a Bungie, you know how Bungie pulled away from Activision, everybody cheered, they're like, ding dong, the witch is dead, and they're all free? If Drew had said, look, I'm a dev that did this in the game. I made the parachute, I made the balloon, I made the wingman, I made the movement, whatever it is he did. I feel for you guys. I wish it wasn't monetized this badly. That's a ridiculous price. But this is what EA wants. Boom, gone. Instant, like, out the door. No severance. No payment. No pension. Nothing. Just, you probably wouldn't have heard from him again. He'd probably be in the end zone in Giant Stadium next to Jimmy Hoffa. Because he would have gone against the monster that is EA. And that probably would have got him canned faster than him arguing with people on the internet. And, you know, we're dickheads. We're freeloaders and everything like that. And that's another thing. If he had said free-to-play players, he's like, the whales account for only 2% of the population, and they keep the lights on for the free-to-play players. Boom, that's nice. It's smooth. It's buttery. It goes down super easy. But when he calls the free-to-play players freeloaders, which is what you say about Uncle Jimmy when he moves in because he got kicked out of his girlfriend's place because he cheated on her, and now he's couch surfing downstairs on your couch. He's making it smell, and he eats all your peanut butter, and your cereal's gone, and there's an inch of milk left when you go to the fridge. That's a fucking freeloader, not somebody who plays a free-to-play game as a free-to-play game. And if it's just cosmetics and nothing's pay to win, like Overwatch, and you don't care if you look like a neon Christmas tree or Thanos, so what? So what? Who cares if your wingman is gold? The only people who care is the gambling pressure people, the high schoolers who play it with you and be like, oh, you don't have a gold wingman skin? Nerd. You're noob. You're nerd. Get a skin or commit suicide. That's where that all is there. And that's where freeloaders has such a negative connotation to it. And that dev, he just, he floated that out there, and that's another reason why people are so pissed off. So, here's another update on the situation. Vince Zampella. On Friday, we gave Apex fans an update on how we're changing the Iron Crown event. Some of the team then joined the discussion with our community on Reddit, and things went to a pretty bad place. I'd say that's a Tijuana Donkey Show bad place at that point. Somebody's coming out of there with a hole bigger than it should be, based on what happened. But alright. Some of our folks crossed the line with their comments, and that's not how we want Respawn to be represented. Okay, this guy's getting it about when you stand up for things and you have the weight of something behind you. I apologize to any of our fans that were offended. Yeah, that's a weak statement. That's the cop-out statement in today's modern verbiage. It should be, I apologize to our fans for what the devs said that were offensive. That puts the blame back on the people who did it, not the blame. This is called receiver blame in the world of communication. You're putting it on the receiver that they got offended by what was said, rather than the source for saying an offensive thing. You have somebody in your family who passed away from 9/11, and you hear the meme of jet fuel doesn't burn steel, and you're offended. That's by saying, like, it's a shame that you got offended by that, because that's supposedly the truth. Jet fuel doesn't burn steel beams, rather than the person who's saying that to your face when they know you've lost somebody in 9/11. Yeah, don't like that sentence there. I'll always stand behind the team here at Respawn and support them on speaking out against some of toxic and nasty comments being directed at them, including everything from death threats to comments aimed at their family and loved ones. Pretty real thing nowadays where gaming companies have people who get doxxed, and it's like, oh, there's your wife on Facebook. She's a fat sow, isn't she? Like, that stuff doesn't help anybody and shouldn't occur, and sadly it does, and this is where gamers get a bad rep. But we shouldn't contribute to it when we do comment and to add the very thing we want to prevent. That statement is the truth. That is the big thing about this. We need to lead by example. Also the truth, 100%. Last week we did do that. 100% the truth again. Going forward, we will be better. Having an open, healthy relationship with our community is incredibly important to all of us at Respawn. This is also from the disaster recovery playbook of gaming in the past 3 or 4 years. Hey, we did this terrible thing. We're sorry. We'll learn from it. We'll be better. Destiny, Bungie, happened there. Did it not happen there with Bungie for all of Destiny 2's life cycle up until somewhat recently? We're sorry the raid sucked. We're sorry this event sucked. We'll be more transparent. We'll talk to you guys more. A month later, crickets. Anthem. Oh, we'll lay out the roadmap, and we have 8 months of crickets. No Man's Sky. Well, that was just a flat-out lie. But it's getting better now from what people say. But, like, this is the other thing that you sign when you join on with a software house. If you don't like people, they're rando asshats. And if you have to do disaster recovery, literally tear out page 5 of your orientation manual and just puke it out on the net. That's what a lot of this is. But a lot of this, I will give Vince, it is the right things to say about this situation. we'll have to give Respawn time to see um, if it works that way. But a lot of people have mentioned that not just the skins and the money is an issue here. Apex Legends is physically not playing well right now. The servers are having huge issues. And they're being like, if you're going to rake us over the coals for this event and take our money, can't you put it back into the servers? And Drew over here said, like, money doesn't fix that. Money can maybe hire you an idiot who can fix it, or a better server farm. Just saying. So here's another thread by Pathfinder. Damage control was out today. Man, they were mean. I get it. It's not easy taking shit from everyone who's mad at you. Most miss the argument and assume I'm upset or bothered by the monetization of the game. It's not the issue. I'm talking about how the devs responded to negative criticism with negative criticism. Yup. Dev responses are few and far between, so when over half of the responses for devs are negative, it sucks. No doubt the community is full of pieces of shit. Doesn't mean the developers need to be ones too. That is my point. People are so quick to assume my position on other issues when I'm just calling out what they're doing. Yeah. Sort by controversial's fun. Community members saying they didn't feel attacked. People treat the devs like shit, expect them not to be emotional in some of their replies. Maybe the professional courtesy things were said that were rude. Maybe they're in a shitty position by having to be defensive. People are too sensitive, blah, blah, blah. This one I don't agree with. Fucking greedy money grubbing Apex devs and their shitty bucket game a few moments later. Why is the dev being such an asshole on Reddit? Yeah, that question is valid. This guy's not getting it right. This question is valid because they can come back and deflate the situation. They chose not to. They inflated. And this is very similar to, and this will be the end of the video here, this is very similar to a PR case study that I did when I was in college concerning Food Lion. Food Lion was reportedly maybe misdating their meats. Specifically redating their meats after they hit their expiration date, taking off the sticker, redating them for the future, and putting them back out there. A journalist went undercover to a local Food Lion in her town and got a job in that area and realized that, at least at that Food Lion, it was true. They were redating the meats. So she broke the story, and Food Lion is now publicly shamed for redating the meats. What Food Lion did is what made the situation worse, and why I actively did not shop at Food Lion for many years after, and still generally don't. And that is, they didn't say, we're sorry, it was that one store, that manager, he's fired, she's fired, that store will be held accountable, it'll be closed down for 2 days as we do retraining. Something. You know, what Starbucks did when they threw, somebody called the cops, and those two African-American guys were thrown out for believing they were just like loitering, but they were waiting for the friend. It was not a legitimate situation. They weren't just hanging out. They were just there on purpose. So Starbucks went, all right, like, we're going to retrain everybody. This kind of crap. Sorry, this is a terrible smear on us over here. We'll fix this. What Food Lion did was they turned around and said, you falsified to the journalist. You falsified your work records to get the job here, to blow the story open. We are suing you for work falsification, record falsification. Wrong. That is not what you do from a PR perspective. That is essentially admitting you're busted, but then trying to do a whataboutism over there. Like, but what you did is wronger. What you did is worse. And it shifts the topic, the narrative, the whole thing to, but you're at fault for this too. Never mind what I did. We just swept that under the rug. Now you're going to court too. That would be like if Starbucks turned around and said, well, yeah, we called the cops because they smelled like homeless people. Like, you'd be like, what? What are you doing? What, like, how do you smell? Like, is it garbage? Did you not put on enough Axe today? Like, how is it that you smelled like a homeless person or something? That's how Starbucks, like, would have made it worse or would have turned it around on those guys. They could be fine, upstanding software devs who make $100,000 a year that were waiting for somebody. And it could be like, we smelled bad that day? We were doing crunch. I didn't get the shower. I was in 2 week long crunch. Sue me. But Starbucks did do that. They handled it right. Food Line didn't, and neither did the Respawn devs over here. They really screwed the pooch on this one, and they've got bigger fish to fry within this game from what I'm seeing, and you don't do that from a position of power. You don't do that when you represent something more than yourself. I can tell Drew to his face on Reddit, this is predatory, this is atrocious, this is $200 to get an axe skin with a gargoyle looking face on one side of it. You guys are just like, I hope an elephant tongues your balls with his big trunk and then squeezes or something like that. It's awful. I shouldn't say anything like that, but I can get away with it when they fire back and say things like Drew did over here. Yeah, that's when you have a major problem and you should be held accountable. And when you say, I remember when gamers weren't toxic people, remember, you guys did it first. Going back to UT, going back to those games, when you had new content, it was a patch. It wasn't a DLC. It wasn't a gaming service cost or something like that. You got a free fucking patch that gave you new maps, new modes, new vehicles. I mean, I can remember a huge community patch for UT2K4 that gave us new vehicles with an onslaught, new maps all over the place. Free. Just download it. Go to the Epic website, download it. But then DLC came around, and I said to my friend at the time, I'll never pay for DLC, and then I did. And then the loot boxes stuff started happening, and gambling, and gaming as a service, beyond just a subscription like WoW. Like, WoW floats above all of this to a certain degree, except when you consider the store and the mounts. But hey, at least they don't have loot boxes. They just have bosses that maybe do or don't give you what you... Okay, forget about WoW. So, they did it first. They took gaming further and further and further and further to taking more money out of your pocket. Not us. We're not the ones who demanded free-to-play games and then never paid anything in them. They brought this on themselves. And you take somebody like Cliffy B after he leaves Epic because he says, I don't want to get into free-to-play stuff and loot boxes and that kind of thing. Pay to play my game and keep it old school, keep it real. So he leaves Epic to start the company that was behind Lawbreakers. And that didn't work too well, mostly because Cliffy B didn't always represent himself very well when he was doing interviews. And people are like, oh, make it free to play. And I understand he didn't want to do that. And he actually, when you see stuff like this, he should be commended for it. I would rather pay $20 or $30 to get Lawbreakers straight out. Boss Key Studios was what he had. And just pay $20, $25, $30, get it straight out, than have to worry about purchasing loot boxes and everything. And it kind of puts Cliffy B in a much different light when you see all the hate that happens now. And yeah, there's another negative 5,000 points for Drew. So thanks guys for taking a listen. Let me know what you think. Especially, I'm really curious to think what you guys think about the whole devs are the entitled one over here. Nobody floats that opinion. And I'm curious to see if you guys agree with that or don't agree. And, you know, tell me, hey, we're all a bunch of toxic rando asshats that mansplain how Apex Legends should be played. Whatever. Let me know. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a good one.